This is Report to Wyoming.
This week's episode is all about Kindness Ranch, an animal sanctuary in Hartville, Wyoming. I talked to the communications director, April Arrington, all about what they're doing to provide a safe space for former research or lab animals that have been rescued. So buckle up for this one. How long have you been with Kindness Ranch?
Since October.
Okay. What drew you to the Hartville, Wyoming?
So I actually work remote.
Okay.
So I work remote. I do all the online fundraising, social media, anything digital. I even do the merchandise. What drew me to Kindness Ranch was I've always had a passion for former research animals, and have actually worked with different organizations throughout the years. And what I loved about Kindness Ranch was that they were, the sanctuary that these animals get to live on is just so magical, being over 1,000 acres. So once they are rescued from research, they get to go and live on this incredible sanctuary and just live out their freedom at this just incredible, beautiful place.
And so, I have so many questions about the facility itself, but first of all, your background. I'm really interested to know how someone gets involved. You said you were passionate about helping research animals. Where does that come from?
Yeah, so I actually saw a video on social media about 10 years ago where beagles touched grass for the first time. And growing up, I had a beagle. And so I watched the video and I saw these beagles come out of crates and touch grass for the first time ever in their lives. And I was like, this is strange. Why haven't they been able to run around on grass? And it turns out that those specific beagles were used in laboratory research. And so I started doing some digging and saw that beagles were the number one dog breed of choice for animal testing. And so through that research, I found out that, it's not just rats or mice or rabbits that are tested on. It's dogs, cats, and farm animals as well. So that video really touched my life. And, I just imagined my family dog growing up, who was a beagle. I just, was so just struck by this video. And so it really opened my eyes that animal testing goes on in America. It's something that no one really thought about, and seeing that video really just touched me. And so I wanted to get involved any way I could.
Then do you guys work with any other animal sanctuaries in Wyoming?
We don't necessarily work with other sanctuaries in Wyoming, but we do work with other rescues. So while our mission is to rescue former research animals, we have helped out in the past when the sheriff's office has asked us to help with cruelty cases. So last year there was a cruelty case of about 20 huskies on a property that were being neglected, and they were actually living in a horse trailer together, all 20 huskies living in one horse trailer, just being completely neglected and abused. And when they let the dogs out, they found one husky that was being eaten alive by the other dogs, which was just so horrific and sad. And they asked if we could take that specific husky on because he was super fearful. And so, with our experience with fearful animals, we took him on because he was so scared, and then he also needed around-the-clock care. And so our sanctuary provides that already for our animals. So that's why the sheriff's office asked us if we could take on this specific dog.
This is the one that was being eaten?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, that's like a nightmare. Wow.
I know. We had never really seen anything like it before. They tend to... it was rough, but we rehabilitated him, and his mom actually texted me yesterday photos of him on his first camping trip. So he is living the best life now.
Okay, so this was in Wyoming, and he went to Kindness Ranch?
Yeah, so we worked with the sheriff's office and then a local animal control, because they took the other 19 dogs because they were pretty well adjusted. And so that's when animal control and the sheriff's office asked if we could take on that one specific dog, just because he needed a lot more care and attention.
And for the listeners, what's the nearest city to Kindness Ranch? Or I guess Hartville, Wyoming is where we're talking about specifically.
Yeah, so we are right next to Guernsey National State Park.
The pictures of the Kindness Ranch are awesome. Definitely a lot of space. It's a beautiful place. Lots of great sunsets and sunrises. What about Kindness Ranch do you think is different in your experience from maybe other places that do rescues?
Yeah, so pretty much the coolest aspect of Kindness Ranch is our whole rescue and rehabilitation process before adoption. So normally rescues will rescue the animal and they either have a facility or they will foster the dog out, right? That's how normal rescues work. Well, at Kindness Ranch, we actually have dog and cat caretakers that live with the animals round the clock. So, for instance, when we rescue beagles from research, these beagles go into a dog yurt, and essentially a dog yurt is a cabin. Sometimes the yurt aspect gets lost, and it's like, no, it's not a glamping tent. It's an actual cabin. So like 10 beagles will live in a cabin with an actual caretaker. And so that caretaker's job is only to take care of those specific beagles. So they will wake up in the morning. These dogs will, and so essentially why we do this is because former research animals, they have only lived in laboratory environments. So essentially very sterile. They may have never interacted with other dogs. They don't know what a TV is, different things like that. So what we do is we like to let them decompress and rehabilitate before they are adopted out. So when they're in these dog yurts, the caretaker gets up with them in the morning. They get to run outside. Each dog yurt has a 1 acre fenced area. So they get to run around and play, and then they eat breakfast. And then essentially we just like to give them a home-like environment for them to get used to before going into a home. Because coming from, say, an environment like a laboratory, it can be pretty shocking to go straight into a loud home with loud noises. If there's kids or other dogs, it can kind of shell shock them a little bit. So we do a really gentle approach where once they are rescued, we work with them in a home-like environment so that we can get them ready for adoption. Things such as, eating out of a dog food bowl. Sometimes it's just scattered in the lab for them, the kibble. So we teach them how to eat out of a dog bowl. We teach them how to walk on a leash. We teach them, we put on dog harnesses for them so that they're able to get used to walking on a leash. And just kind of stuff like that. And we try to potty train them before they go home as well.
And so then do most of the dogs that get rescued get adopted?
Yes. So I don't think we've ever had, I think we've had 3 to 5 dogs that were really too fearful or feral or just too timid to go into a home with the public. But so our staff members have adopted them into their personal homes. But for the most part, 99% of these dogs go into their forever homes. So every dog goes into a forever home. But sometimes if it's super fearful or, sometimes we do get a dog that is dog aggressive. And so they have to be the only dog in the home. We look into getting them that specific home for them. So a lot of our staff members have some of more of the harder to adopt dogs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then I saw there were farm animals too. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we rescue dogs and cats, and those are the ones that go into the yurts and live with the caretakers before they are adopted. So the only animals we adopt out at Kindness Ranch are dogs, cats, and then rabbits. So those are the 3 types of animals that we rescue and adopt out. And so all of our farm animals, get to live on our sanctuary for the rest of their lives. So we have horses, goats, sheep, llamas, pigs, and those guys get to live on our beautiful sanctuary for the rest of their lives.
How many pigs ballpark do you guys have?
Oh my goodness. So we have all different sorts of pigs. So I think we have around 12 pigs right now. We just added a new one, and she is the cutest little thing you've ever seen. So we have pigs that are, the huge, giant pink pigs.
Like market pigs?
Yeah,
over
essentially.
Maybe 2,000 pounds?
Yes, really big pigs. So we have a few of those guys, and then we have a group of littles, as we call them. And so those are going to be your potbelly pigs, it's called coon pigs. And so we have a group of littles, and then we have these 2 Yucatan pigs. And so these mini Yucatan pigs are hairless, and they're a shade of gray, and they're essentially the size of dogs, and they'll never get bigger. And these 2 girls, Daphne and Delilah, are just hysterical. They have so much personality. They're really sassy, and we like to think of them as the dogs of the barnyard, because they will just come up to you for attention, and if you're not giving it to them, they're going to nip at your shoes and your ankles to show you, like, hey, I'm here. You better pay attention to me. So those 2 girls are wild and crazy.
Do you guys have pictures of these girls?
Oh, yes. So we have them all over our social media. And then we just created a Patreon page for our more invested audience. That way we don't spam everyone on Facebook with thousands of photos every day. If you're super invested in Kindness Ranch, you can find us on Patreon under Kindness Ranch. And that's where we post thousands of photos of our ridiculous animals every day.
It's Daphne and Delilah, right?
Yeah, I can also send you some great photos of them together being very mischievous.
So I asked about pigs specifically because I love them. Big, fat, little, all kinds of pigs. Love them all. So
they are ridiculous. And then we have one of our giant, boar pigs. His name's Ernie, and we've actually taught him how to sit. So imagine this 2,000-pound pig sitting before he gets a treat.
Oh my!
And he is just, all these. It's just amazing because, all these animals are rescued from research. And so, majority of the time they're scared and fearful. And then over time they just blossom. And some of these farm animals just have the biggest personalities. And it's just so incredible to watch them grow over time and to just blossom into the animals, they were always supposed to be. And so every animal has a story, and some of them can be really upsetting. But when you see them in person or photos or videos on social media and you see their lives now and just how happy they are, that's what makes it for us. And that's why the Kindness Ranch exists. And, we have goats, and one of our goats, Kevin, he's kind of like a social media star because all he likes to do is headbutt people. And he does it in a playful way, again, like a dog. So you'll be giving him treats and he'll stand up on you and ask for more treats. And then if you are empty, he'll chase you around until you find miraculously more peanuts in your pockets or something for him. And he's hysterical. And so, being from research, he was very scared and a little fearful when we first got him. And it was just him and another goat named Acorn. And so it was the 2 goats living with the 3 sheep, and Kevin was just very sassy and mischievous. And then last year we rescued 6 more goats. And now Kevin thinks he doesn't think. He has this job of protecting these new goats. So he protects this herd, and this has given him so much more confidence. He's really stopped the headbutting. And he is just so much more relaxed now that he has all these new friends and this purpose of protecting his little goat herd.
Okay. How many animals do you think you guys have?
We have around, I want to say, 53 sanctuary animals.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, and so that includes, I want to say, I think it's 7 horses, 7 beautiful, gorgeous horses. And so it's incredible to watch them come out of a laboratory and then just getting to run into these giant open pastures. I mean, some of them are just over 40 acres. So just getting to see that is just absolutely magical. And then, we have 4 llamas, and they pretty much keep to themselves. But one of the llamas, we call her Mama Llama because she will come and inspect you before you are allowed to come meet the herd, which is really funny.
She's the bouncer. Yeah.
Yeah, she's legit the llama bouncer.
Oh, gosh, that's so cute. Do people visit, or is it something where you only go when you go to adopt? How does that work?
No, so we love having visitors, and we also love having volunteers. So because we are in such a rural area, we actually have 4 guest cabins for accommodation, and then a giant cabin that we call the manor. So if you wanted to bring a big party of people down to volunteer or spend a week with us, we actually have guest accommodation for you guys. They're all fully furnished, everything you could ever need. And so people can actually go on our website, kindnessranch.org, and select dates and come out and visit. They can book a room so that they have a place to stay, or if you're a local or just driving through, we just ask that you contact our office and give us a heads up of your dates of when you'd like to come and visit. Just because in wintertime, a lot of people wanted to visit and didn't realize how rural we were. A lot of the highways were shut down. So we always just want to ask people, give us a heads up before they come visit. But we are completely open to the public every day, 8 to 4. And so we do love having volunteers. And so that's something you can do. You can email us and sign up for the days you want to volunteer. And the volunteer opportunities are, you can help socialize the dogs, you can play with the cats, or you can help the barn crew doing their daily chores and duties, which, can be a little bit more messy than playing with the dogs, but you're mucking out stalls, getting the full ranch experience, and then you get to feed them all treats and stuff throughout the day and get to see Ernie sit for his treats. So we love having volunteers and visitors. And then because we are in such a rural location, we have the guest cabins there as well for anyone who wants to come out and adopt an animal. We're probably, I think it's 90 minutes north of Cheyenne. And so for the most part, it's a very long drive for people. So to come out, meet the dogs, adopt a dog, and then drive back home can be a very long day. So our adopters normally stay at the sanctuary overnight. So that's why we have these wonderful, beautiful, fully furnished cabin accommodations, because we are in such a rural location.
They are really pretty. I was looking at pictures, and so maybe we'll make it that way one day. I have 2 little girls who would be in hog heaven, pun intended. That was bad. Are beagles the most common dog that you guys rescue because they've kind of notoriously been the research dog?
Yes, 100%. Beagles are the breed of choice for animal research because they are, one, they're a decent size, they're small, and so they're small, but then they're also so docile and people-pleasing. So what makes them incredible family companion animals is the reason they're also chosen for animal research, which is, pretty heartbreaking. But also beagles and hounds. Hounds are the larger breed that's used, and it's because they get along so well with others. You can house a lot of them together without fights breaking out. If you think of other dog breeds, you might not want 10 chihuahuas,
Right.
because they might fight or something like that, or any other types of breeds. So sadly, what makes them incredible pets is the reason they are chosen for animal research.
But then you guys see all breeds too, or not all breeds. I guess I should ask, not fish. You said that you guys had housed huskies. What other kind of breeds do you have right now?
So right now we have all beagles except one dog named Kai. And she is a Beagle Pit Bull mix, and she's brindle. So she's actually adoptable. So we are broadcasting her as this exotic striped beagle.
Well,
If you've
yeah,
ever
I'm
wanted
thinking
one of
about
her.
how this even happened. Because it's a little the matchup, the elevation problem.
So we don't know who her mom or dad was, but so we rescued them from research, and this is it can be government funded labs such as state schools or colleges that have research programs. You have private funded labs that are for pharmaceutical companies or different type of product testing for companies. And then you also have veterinary training schools that the dogs are released to us. So sometimes places adopt, or essentially they adopt dogs from local animal shelters, and it's called a pound seizure. So they go in, they adopt these dogs from animal control, and then they actually use them in veterinary training. And so a lot of veterinary schools have strayed away from this model. They use, real cases to teach their students, but then you have some practices that still use this kind of old school approach where they get dogs from animal control, and this practice is called pound seizure, and then they teach the veterinary students on these specific dogs. So Kai is actually rescued from veterinary training. We don't know what she was used in, but that is why she is a mixed breed dog, is because she was probably taken from the pound.
Okay. And then the release. At what point are they released? Just when what qualifies a dog for not being useful for research that they would hand them over?
Yeah, so it's very different. It's a case-by-case basis. Right now, there's no law. There's no federal law saying that these animals have to be released. For the majority of the time, they are actually put down after research. And so that is why Kindness Ranch exists, is to, rescue these dogs, have the labs release them to us. That way, once they are done being used for research, they can actually live normal lives. And so it's very hard because a lot of labs, they don't want to release them because I think it's a time, effort, and cost on their part. They might be a small laboratory and not have a lot of funding or something. And laboratories are not rescue organizations, right? So laboratories don't have the staff of personnel to vet adopters out and to adopt them out, right? That's
and they
not really
never
part of
have,
their gig.
as a person who worked in academia, there's so little money for R&D. So I could see it as a cost, but yeah, that's a part of this that's so complicated and tragic.
Yeah, and so, we contact any lab we can. I think we've contacted all the ones in America, and we say, hey, when you're done with testing, release the dogs to us, and we'll sign any NDAs, any confidentiality agreements, and just, we'll come pick up the dogs day or night, anytime, no cost to you, and we will give these animals that you guys have been caring for we'll give them a future. And that's essentially what we want to do, is just provide former research animals a future. And so you have Kindness Ranch we're not a political affiliated group. We're not an activism group. We are essentially just a rescue and sanctuary. And so why labs tend to euthanize is because you do have activism groups that put laboratories on blast for doing research or government-funded research. They call them out publicly, and it can get really messy with sometimes the activism work that different groups or people do, because of it's like a huge safety issue. So that's why labs don't necessarily like to work with other organizations. They're very private. And so that's why we are, we're not affiliated with anything. We just want to see these dogs in a home. So that's why we exist. We'll sign any confidentiality agreement. We will never publicly speak about the lab they came from or anything like that. We just want to see the dogs in a home. Or the other animals. We rescue a ton of cats and rabbits from research as well.
Oh, that's so helpful that you say that, because I was wondering about that really sensitive balance that you have to strike when you're rescuing because of everything you just said. So I won't repeat it. That was really well put. And it's helpful, I think, for listeners to visualize what the process is like. Do you guys rescue mostly from around the area or nationwide? How far are you willing to travel, that kind of thing?
We do nationwide, and so we do have labs that we work with on, we've created these relationships where they haven't had to put down animals for years because they release them to us, which is just an incredible partnership, So we built this relationship with labs, and they don't have to euthanize any more animals, which is just absolutely incredible. They know the incredible magical work that Kindness Ranch does, and so they release the animals to us. And that's all we ask for any other laboratories. And it's a great, it's just what we are here to do. And so we do have local labs that we work with. We have labs in the state. We have labs in surrounding states, but we also do nationwide. So we are available at the beck and call of these laboratories day or night, 24/7. If a lab in Ohio is like, hey, we have 6 beagles and they need to be picked up tomorrow or else they're going to be euthanized, we will be there. We have moved heaven and earth for these animals. And last year we were part of the biggest rescue in U.S. history with 4,000 beagles.
So 4,000 beagles. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, because you said you had over about 50 animals currently. What did you do with these beagles?
Okay, yeah, it's a big number, but let me break down the whole story for you. So last year, there was a breeding facility in Virginia called Envigo, and Envigo breeding facility was shut down by the DOJ, the USDA, and the Humane Society of the United States got involved because there was just, I won't go into the horrific details of how these animals were living, but it was dire straits at this breeding facility. So essentially, breeding facilities exist to breed these beagles and then sell them to laboratories. So Envigo had around 4,000 to 6,000 beagles at a time because they breed them there and then they sold them to laboratories. So they were fined so many animal cruelty charges and just other USDA charges. And so the Department of Justice actually shut them down and released all 4,000 beagles to the Humane Society of the United States. And so HSUS then worked with other nationwide rescues to dole out all these dogs, and Kindness Ranch was chosen as one of these rescues because we're so prominent in the former research rehabilitation. So Kindness Ranch had a hand at securing the release of around, I want to say 1,000. And so what we did with 1,000 beagles is majority came back to Kindness Ranch, and then we worked with our two other big rescue partners, Priceless Pets in California, and then Homeward Trails Animal Rescue out of Virginia. So between all three of us, I think we had around 1,000 beagles. And the HSUS, with the other 3,000, they were doled out to other Humane Society, the United States Rescue Organizations, and some of the shelters they have, et cetera. So we bought a new, larger and improved rescue van last year, and John, our executive director, and his wife, they made multiple trips from Wyoming to Virginia and picked up all the dogs for us. And that's what I mean by we will move heaven and earth for these animals. And so it was at the drop of a hat. They were on the road to Virginia to start the process of, rescuing hundreds of beagles.
Oh my gosh, that is a great story. Wow. Mm-hmm. But are you guys, as far as capacity, are you at capacity? How does that work? Do you take animals on still, or can you only go to a certain amount?
No. So we will always take animals. We are lucky enough to have an incredible donor support. We just have incredible donors, and we have an incredible board of directors that we will always take animals. We will never say, oh, sorry, those animals are going to have to be euthanized. Ever. We will always take the animals. And so I think within Vigo, we were pretty much at capacity. I'm not going to say at capacity where we couldn't take any more, but what we did is that's why we worked with our rescue partners to then, transport dogs to them so that they were able to adopt them out. But we had a ton of animals. We had a ton of beagles at the sanctuary at that time. But, that's why we have these yurts with caretakers. So we have 2 dog yurts, and then we have 1 cat yurt. But then all the staff that work at the sanctuary, they all have their own yurt and cabin. So when that happened, we were able to just, open up all the cabins and yurts for all the different dogs to be rehabilitated like that. And then we also, so for farm animals, we have designated pastures and fences and everything like that for each specific animal. But we also have a large indoor arena. I forget how big it is. It's insane. It's one of those, horse riding arenas that a lot of people have out there. It's fully enclosed and it's actually heated. So we're able to set up temporary enclosures to facilitate, an enormous amount of animal enclosures, as need be. So say if somebody called and they were like, hey, we're getting 100 dogs. It's like, okay, cool. Let's set it up overnight. And then we will start doling them out into different areas and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's the staff like? How many people do you think are working at the ranch?
I think we have around 15. I know the animal care team is probably 10 to 12, and then we have a solid 3-person maintenance team. And then we do have, so I want to say 15 to 17 on-site staff, and then we have 2 remote employees. So I'm remote, and then my development counterpart, Liz, she's remote as well. But just because we're remote, I fly in once a month, normally for a week, just so that I can spend time with the staff and animals to get kind of the touch and feel of the ranch, the heartbeat of the sanctuary, if you will, to kind of put that out on social media and tell our supporters all the new happenings going on at the sanctuary.
This has been Report to Wyoming, presented in the public interest by Town Square Media.